Welcome back to the Deep Dive, where we tear into the latest research and hand you the synthesized knowledge you need to be well-informed.
Great to be here.
Today, we are strapping on our mental running shoes. For real. We're diving deep into the science of language acquisition, but we're looking at it a little differently. Not as, just memorizing verb tables, but as an intensive, rigorous mental training regimen.
Yeah, and it's a powerful and I think a really necessary shift in perspective. The source material frames this argument just beautifully. It draws this direct, almost brutal analogy between physical fitness and linguistic growth. I mean, they state it explicitly. Your brain is a muscle that fundamentally thrives on resistance.
Right.
So the key takeaway for anyone out there learning a new language is this. If you're not feeling the strain, if you're not hitting those moments of discomfort, you are probably not growing.
And that sets the stage perfectly because that discomfort is usually the thing that drives people away. So our mission today is to unpack this mental workout plan. We need to figure out the science behind why growth demands that feeling of struggle.
And how to avoid the mental version of skipping leg day.
Yes, which, as we'll see, is far too common. And crucially, what strategies we can use to maintain that momentum and, the right mindset when it gets really difficult.
And we really want to challenge that impulse, that first reaction to just quit when things get hard.
Right.
Because if you are sitting there after an hour wrestling with complex tenses, say, trying to get your head around German subordinate clauses or Japanese passive causative verbs, and your brain feels just spent.
Yeah, fried.
That's the proof of work. That isn't failure. That is the biological signal you actually want to be feeling.
So that feeling, that aching brain, it needs to be completely reframed. It's the same signal as sore legs after a good squat session. It's proof of microscopic damage that's going to rebuild stronger. The core idea then is pretty challenging. If you're comfortable, you're stagnating.
Let's ground this discomfort in some cognitive reality, though. What's fascinating here is why the effort is so high.
Okay.
Learning complex material, especially grammar that just doesn't exist in your native language, is the mental muscle burn because you are forcing the brain to build entirely new neural connections.
You're not just filing new data away.
No, not at all. You are literally restructuring the pathways of thought.
So when I try to build a sentence using, let's say, the past perfect subjunctive in Spanish, which takes 3 different mental processes at once.
Right. Verb knowledge, conjugation, mood selection.
My brain is firing up these new, very weak pathways. So it's working inefficiently. It's heating up.
Exactly. And that inefficiency is where the adaptation happens. It's the magic. If you only stick to simple stuff, present tense, basic words, your brain never needs to build those superhighways.
It just stays on the dusty back roads.
It does. And real fluency, that ability to quickly access and use these complex structures, that requires high-resistance training. If the brain doesn't feel like it just ran a marathon sometimes, you're not pushing hard enough for that full system adaptation.
You're just maintaining.
You're just maintaining what you already know.
That clarity is so important. So let's move from the metaphor to the operational side. If this is a workout plan, what does the language workout plan actually look like?
Okay.
The source material gives us rule 1, and it's completely non-negotiable consistency.
Yeah.
But I have to ask, if I'm struggling for time, why is daily effort better than, say, a 6-hour cram session on a Saturday?
The hidden cost is memory. The material says fluency cannot be achieved in one cram session, just like you can't get fit with one gym visit.
Right.
That kind of sporadic, intense effort, it leads to burnout, and this is the key, very poor attention. Your working memory gets overloaded, you push through exhaustion, and then the next day,
It's gone.
it's mostly gone because the brain didn't bother consolidating it. It saw it as temporary data. Too much, too fast.
So we ditched the cognitive marathon. What does that consistent daily effort look like? How do we make the brain, sweat a little every single day without overload?
It's all about micro habits. Things that demand engagement but respect your brain's capacity. The sources talk about things that take, 15 to 30 minutes, tops?
Like what?
Maybe you listen to a short 10-minute podcast on your commute, or you commit to reading just one news article. But crucially, the sources advise that when you read, you should aim for only 70% comprehension.
Wait, only 70%? That feels so counterintuitive. My first instinct is to look up every single word I don't know.
And that's the trap, because looking up every word immediately turns the exercise from comprehension training into vocabulary list building.
Which is a different mental activity.
A much lower resistance activity. By aiming for 70%, you are practicing intelligent guessing. You're forcing your brain to use context, syntax, all those clues to infer meaning.
And that process of inferring.
That's the high resistance exercise. That's the heavy lift that leads to organic growth. If you look up every word, you're skipping it.
I could see how those small, persistent actions would compound over time. But, with any training plan, people avoid the hard stuff.
Mm-hmm.
We all know about skipping leg day in the gym. What's the language learning equivalent? And where do we find the motivation on day 40 when it all just feels like a grind?
That avoidance part is critical. The skipping leg day trap is when a learner consistently avoids the exercises that force the highest level of output and vulnerability.
Okay, so not input, but output.
Right. The source material points to speaking aloud and spontaneous writing as the two biggest avoidance zones. People are great at consumption reading, listening, but they can be paralyzingly bad at production.
Well, yeah, the scary skills. You expose yourself when you speak or write. You risk making obvious, audible mistakes a lot of the time in front of other people.
Precisely. And the analysis of this is just so important. The skill you avoid is almost certainly the muscle you need to train the most.
So that's the tell.
It's the tell. You see this huge gap between comprehension and production. You can read a novel, but you can't order a coffee smoothly.
I have absolutely been there.
Your comprehension muscles are huge, but your articulation muscles are atrophied because you keep skipping them. Your fluency is basically being held hostage by the skill you're afraid to practice badly.
So that wave of panic I feel when I have to come up with a sentence on the spot, that's not a stop sign, it's a roadmap.
It's a roadmap. It's an instruction manual telling you exactly where to go. It's a fear-based focus group for your study plan.
Wow. But that panic is signaling where the resistance needs to be applied.
You have to push into that vulnerability. And that's the definition of mental toughness.
But even if we embrace that struggle, there's a counterbalance, right? Recovery. Athletes need rest. Learners need rest. We can't be at maximum resistance 24/7.
No. And it's more than just avoiding burnout. It is essential for physiological consolidation. The material defines rest not as lazy, but as strategic rest.
Strategic rest.
Your brain uses sleep, relaxation, even fun to consolidate new information. During deep sleep, the hippocampus replays and files all those new connections you made during the day.
Is there any concrete research on that? Like how timing your rest makes a difference?
Absolutely. There are studies showing that reviewing, say, a small set of tough vocabulary right before you go to sleep significantly boosts retention.
Really?
Yeah. Learners who did a focused pre-sleep review retained almost 40% more of that material after a week compared to those who reviewed it in the morning.
Wow, 40% is a lot.
That's huge. It happens because the brain flags that material as high priority just before it enters that consolidation phase of sleep. Pushing yourself to exhaustion late at night, though, is explicitly called counterproductive.
That is fantastic.
Yeah.
It gives you permission to step away and trust that the work is still happening. Your brain is like filing the gains for you.
Precisely. Now, moving from the process to the mindset, there's one major enemy that undermines this whole thing. The source material calls it a silent progress killer.
Let me guess. Comparison.
Comparison.
Oh, this one hits home for everyone. You log onto social media, you see a video of someone speaking your target language fluently, effortlessly, and suddenly you feel like you haven't moved an inch.
It's the classic trap. The danger is comparing your behind the scenes to their highly edited, polished highlight reel.
You're comparing your chapter 1 to their chapter 20.
That's the exact quote. We only see the final presentation, and we forget they also had thousands of awkward hours mispronouncing simple words and getting grammar wrong. The source gives a warning we should all, hang on the wall. Do not measure your chapter 1 against someone else's chapter 20.
That is so freeing because it just shifts the entire goalpost. If I only focus on my journey, then the only meaningful comparison is aiming to be a little bit better than I was yesterday.
That's the entire game. Did you read 5 words yesterday? Did you manage 6 today? Did you speak 1 full sentence without translating it in your head first? That is growth. And once you manage that comparison trap, you can focus on embracing discomfort by redefining what pain means in this context.
So this is like cognitive behavioral therapy for learning.
In a way.
We have to change the signal. So instead of that nervousness before speaking feeling like fear, we should reinterpret it as focus.
As focus, it's the brain sharpening its attention for a difficult task. The nervousness isn't a sign of failure, it's just adrenaline helping you recall things.
And that confusing, frustrating feeling when a grammar rule just won't click.
That's not failure either. That's evidence that the brain is actively processing new, complex information. You're in the middle of a heavy cognitive lift. The muscle is twitching.
That shift in mindset takes real mental toughness, though. For listeners who feel paralyzed by that pressure, how do we make sure we don't just collapse?
By understanding that building the habit is more important than being perfect. You have to start small. Build the habit with manageable challenges. The sources give simple strategies. If speaking to a native speaker is just too scary right now, and that fear makes you avoid it completely, start by talking to yourself in the mirror.
So you remove the listener pressure.
You remove the pressure, but you still practice articulation and recall. You're not skipping the muscle training. You're just adjusting the weight down to a baseline you can handle.
And that guarantees consistency.
Exactly. Or, if writing a whole essay feels impossible, just write one grammatically correct sentence in a journal every single day. The focus is on building the habit, making that daily sweat manageable, and proving to yourself that the uncomfortable task is survivable.
And those tiny daily victories build momentum.
That's what defeats the day 40 grind.
This whole framework is so powerful because it ties effort directly to reward. It redefines struggle as the actual currency of growth.
It is.
The temporary discomfort we feel, the frustration, the confusion, the embarrassment, that's just the price you pay for something much bigger. Permanent expansion.
And that expansion is the so what.
Yeah.
It's what happens beyond just learning the language itself.
Right. The linguistic gain is only part of it.
It's the visible part. What you're really gaining is so much more. Cognitive flexibility, self-confidence, new opportunities, a genuinely broader worldview. You're unlocking a new, stronger part of yourself.
You're training your brain to be better at everything. It's the ultimate ROI on discomfort. A little bit of struggle now for exponential life benefits later. So, based on this, we want to leave you with a final thought. If you view every challenging study session, every difficult conversation, every frustrating moment as a single brick, what future, stronger version of yourself are you actively building?
What is that ultimate gain that makes the temporary discomfort worthwhile?
That's the only comparison that truly matters.
Absolutely.
Keep embracing the resistance, and we'll see you for the next deep dive.